Hello everyone, I'm Melanie with Painting Crafty, and on my channel I like to teach whimsical drawings with a little bit of watercolor. This is definitely for beginner drawers as well, and more advanced drawers. If you'd like to do some whimsical drawing, please jump on and try it, grab your pencils and your paper, and join in the fun. Now for my drawings, I use 140-pound Canson watercolor paper. It's reasonably priced and it works great for these little whimsical drawings. Now I'm going to be doing a scarecrow, so I just went ahead and used a circle. That's off my cat litter box. It's a perfect little circle though for this. Circles are sometimes a little challenging to draw, so why not use a template when you can? I'm all for doing easy when there's a chance to do easy. Now I'm going to start with this little scarecrow's hat, and I'm going to put it on a little bit sideways. I'm going to do a gentle curve across the forehead, lower it down a little bit so it looks like it's going to sit on his head. If you put it right on the top, it's just going to look like it's perched up there. So you're going to want to drop it down over the forehead. Now I just use a regular old mechanical pencil, just an HB, that's just like your number 2 pencil, nothing fancy. It's a number 9 lead. You could go down to a number 7 if you'd like a finer line. But I just like this one, and I guess I particularly like this one because of the small eraser on the end. It's a great little eraser. It's just a polymer eraser, but it works great for getting into those little small areas when I need to make some changes. And you're going to notice in my drawings, I do kind of do a lot of erasing, but that's okay. Erasing's just fine. I also use a large polymer eraser. I just buy these in packs of 3 at Walmart, and they're great for not leaving any marks on your paper. They're easy to find, and that's what I like to use for my drawing. I'm a little heavy-handed, so I like to be able to get in there and erase as much as I like. If you're kind of light-handed, you could use a gum eraser. That would work fine, but I just kind of prefer these little polymer erasers. Now I'm going to be adding a few little details on here, but I'm going to be adding a lot more doodle details and all of those elements later on with my micron pens. So this is just the beginning stages. So I added that little hat on top. I kind of added one side a little bit off to the side, and then added a little bit of a curvy line on one end. I was kind of happy with that. It's kind of reminds me of the Wizard of Oz old Scarecrow hat. That's what it kind of reminds me of. Now to start my face, I just look at where I want the center of it to be, and I draw a line down the center of my face. That just really helps for a guide for me to place the nose and the eyes. I'm going to be drawing a nose shape that's kind of a squared off rectangle look, and I'm going to put that in the middle of where I think I want it, and then I'm going to create these eyes, and I'm calling them the candy corn eyes, a little bit rounded off squatty candy corns. Eyes are sometimes a little tricky, trying to make sure that you're getting them the same size. I might have to erase them and look at them a couple times before I can get them right. So sketch lightly so you can erase. And just mess with it, but you'll get it. These are pretty simple eyes, but they look so cute when they're done. Just about got it done. I'll be adding the centers in there when I get done. I'm going to have the round centers in. I'm going to create those in marker. I'm not going to use my watercolor to do those. Just to get that nice, rich, dark contrast, it looks great. I'm adding a little bit of an eyebrow off to the side, just a simple little one-stroke line. And that'll do in my marker as well. I like to use pencil first. I'm a drawer first, and then I like to go ahead and use my marker. For those of you who feel confident, you could go ahead and use your marker right away for more of a fast sketch style. That works too. Now to create his smile, I didn't want to do just like a rounded happy face smile. So first I went down slightly at an angle, and then I curved my smile around. So that works nice. It's kind of more of a gentle smile face. And I'll be adding some stitch marks on there with my markers to add the detail on there. Now after I got my smile done, I took a little look at my face and decided I wanted to make a little longer nose, so I was able to quickly erase that and add it on. Now I'm going to be adding the little straw hair off to the side. I like to call these like long little French fries. You're going to want to have a little bit of curve into them, have them come off to the side, carry some over their face, on his face too, and that's going to get rid of some of that real strong circle-ish quality, because remember we use the lid to draw the circle. But this is going to help get rid of some of that and add a little bit of softness and whimsicalness to the side of his head. Now I'm going to put those little half circles at the top of my eyes, and that's where I'm going to add the really black marker at the end. And then I do a really fun technique with the watercolor to create those dreamy eyes. Now for his shirt, I'm going to just kind of come at an angle, and then I'm going to make that ruffly line that comes across at an angle. And I'm going to go right off the page because I drew this scarecrow off to an angle, so I would be able to put the corn on the side. I wanted to add another element in there. So that's why I drew the scarecrow off to the side. Kind of take a look at the left side, how you drew it, and just kind of generally draw the same idea on the right side. Now I did draw like a string off of there with a little bit of a tie element. I didn't quite do it right this first time, but I'm going to switch it when I add my marker on there, so then I'll be able to make it a little bit better. My one tie was way too short when I was adding it on there. That's a good thing about drawing in pencil. You can always change your mind, and sometimes you see things after you get done drawing when you're doing your pen work that you might want to change after you do your pencil work. I'm going to add some buttons, a little placket, so I'm just going to give him a simple little ombre blue style denim shirt, adding kind of a little curved pocket on there, and I'll add a little pattern on there as well. Now I was going to add a sunflower here on the side, and I'm just going to try to shoot for 5 petals. They're usually wider at the back, come to a point. You can add a few twists in there. I believe I do that when I'm doing my marker work later on. Now with this sunflower, I should have probably made the center a little bit larger to make it look more like a sunflower. When it's drawn this way, it looks kind of more like a daisy, which is cute too. I do change it later when I'm adding my pen work on there, but just something to think about. If you want to make it to look stronger like a sunflower, make that center bigger and it's going to look more like a sunflower and less like a daisy, but a daisy's cute as well. Now I'm going to be able to put my corn on off to the side there because I have plenty of room to place it. So I'm just going to come straight up a little ways, and I'm going to put some little fun little detail at the top with my micron pins, but I'm just getting the base ready for my corn. And I'm going to make a leaf shape, just a regular old leaf shape, and then I'm going to I'm going to put a little bend over at the top to make it look like my leaf is curved. And then I'm going to come in and copy that same shape on the inside. And with my pens, I'll go ahead and create the corn in the inside, the little squares. And I'm just going to make another one off to the other side. So I fill up both sides and do the same process of following the same lines that I did. And then for the big leaves of the corn, I'm going to come down at the bottom and just kind of copy that same shape I did up above to create my corn, but that's going to be my long leaves for my corn at the bottom. There I pretty much have all the basics drawn, and now it's going to be go ahead and time to add my pen work. But first I'm going to add a little bit of a saying at the top. There's some room up there to add some words, so I thought hello fall would be perfect. I just use my regular old handwriting, and this type of handwriting is more like a drawing skill. It's the more you practice it, the better you're going to get, just like with drawing. And I like to practice that while I'm watching TV. And sometimes I'll just choose a phase that might be the season and start with that and figure out a rhythm of how to write that word. And that's how I practice my writing. Now it's time to do the micron work. I love using the micron pens because they're waterproof. These ones are archival ink. You can easily find them at any place that sells pens, even at your local Walmart store. They are ink that will not bleed when you put water over the top. So that's my favorite pen to use with a pen and ink watercolor style. And I use mostly the size of 5. They come in different sizes. So 0.5 is the largest I normally use because I normally work on smaller things. And then I use a 0.3 and a 0.1. I find those are the ones I use the most. Anything smaller than that gets really roughed up and doesn't last very long on watercolor paper because it's got a little bit of a texture on there. If you are using cardstock, which is a smoother paper, the smaller nib pens will work just fine on that. But I like to use watercolor paper when I'm doing my drawings, so I don't usually go any smaller than the 0.1. Now this part I'm going to go ahead and speed up so you can watch along and see how I do the doodling process and add my line work. Again, I'll just be varying through my size 0.5, 0.3, and 0.1 pens and be adding the doodling. This is the time you're going to be adding all the extra whimsical elements into your drawing. You're going to figure out what kind of marks you like to create. I usually like to add some dashes and dots, and somewhere along I usually add a heart to my drawing. Don't worry about following your pencil marks perfectly. This is the time you're going to be fine-tuning your drawing, so put your pen marks where you think they make the most sense. That little gizmo you saw me using is a dust vacuum, and it works great for picking up the eraser bits off of your table. I'm going to be using a Velvet Touch Princeton number 10 and number 6. They're a watercolor brush, but they're not super expensive. I'm going to be using Marie's professional grade watercolors today, but in my opinion, it's better to just spend a little bit more on your paper. Canson brand isn't that expensive, but it's a nicer quality. Use a better color paper and don't worry so much about your watercolor. You're going to want to make a watercolor card because the colors look so different in the pan than they do on your paper. So by doing a watercolor card, you're going to have a good idea of what your colors are. Watercolor, you're going to want to start light and then work your way dark. It's all about painting the shadows when you're doing watercolor. It's a little bit more opposite than of acrylic paint. Watercolor is going to dry lighter, slightly lighter. Acrylic paint dries slightly darker. So I have a little paper towel in my hand, so after I add the water to the paint and mix it over on my side, I can always test it on my paper towel. Plus I can take a little bit of the paint out before I touch my paper. You always want to start with less and then add more in the case of watercolor. So I'm going to lay down my yellow colors. Watercolor has a little bit unusual technique or process as well too. The paper, because of the cotton, it's going to want to travel the color into whatever area is wet. So if I put my yellow on and I put that on there and then I immediately went to my green, into that green area, that green and that yellow are going to want to mix together, which is perfect in some cases, but not in every one. So I'm going to start with my yellows and then work my way around my pictures. You're going to see me here add in another little bit of straw to the hair. That's one good thing about you can always add on to the things, but watercolor, you normally can't take it out. So take some time, take a look at your drawing, spend some time looking at it before you start adding all the colors. Sometimes you can change things, but often it's when it's down with your ink, it's down. So I'm going to start light and then I'm going to work on my different shades and golds and then build my color up that way. So I'm going to start light, then add more of an ochre, dirtier yellow, add a little bit of rust and bring the depth of my colors there. Now I'm going to speed this video up again and you're going to be able to watch me adding the different colors. When choosing my colors, I usually have a light, a medium, and a dark. And I start with the light one and add those on and then start with the medium and then go with the dark. You might be able to tell in this fast video, but I'm doing a lot of different tap, tap, tap motions. So it's not necessarily a full brush stroke in doing full coverage. I'm creating more depth by just tapping my colors in, brushing them around just a little bit, and creating the different variances. You saw up at top where I added the black and now I'm adding another layer. You'll notice that black isn't truly black. It's got that nice translucent quality to it. And on the greens I did add a light and then a medium, but I also chose to add another darkish green with a little bit of brown added into it. It created a really pretty green. Now those are those really cute eyes I was working on, and those are that super fun technique of coming in and choosing a bright blue first, tapping that color in there, and then going right at the bottom and taking a very darker version while that blue color is still wet and tapping that in at the bottom. And that color is going to move throughout the eye because that's called a wet on wet technique. That's a little bit of watercolor magic that happens when you blend wet colors together. The colors will just move together and create their own little magic. Now the bottom part is dry when I'm adding the dark brown on, but I'm adding those little shadow layers on top underneath his neck and at the top of his hat just to add a little bit more depth into my painting. Down below I've already added the light blue and now I'm heading down to the medium and then the dark blue that will be on top of that. I finished most of my detail and now I'm going to add those cute little pink cheeks. I chose a coral color that I added quite a bit of water to. I've waited until the brown part base of my face is fairly dry. If I go in too early with my pink, I'm going to end up creating more of a brownish color because that brown color is going to release from my face when I tap in that coral paint. So it's best to give that layer a chance to dry before you add these cute little pink cheeks. Tap, 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 and that'll give it just a nice little varied look so it doesn't look so like a round apple sitting on his cheek. I'm going to create a light blue background for my picture. I chose the blue that was the beginning color of my eyes. I added quite a bit of water to that color because I just want a nice light background. I'm going to switch brushes too. I'm going to go to the number 10 because I'm working in with a bigger area. And I've added quite a bit of water to my paint so it's a nice loose consistency. And I'm going to go ahead and apply it to my background, varying my brush strokes, going back and forth in different directions. I'm not looking to have something smooth. I want it kind of more of a whimsical look. So I'm going to have varied colors, different brush strokes in different areas. Now these colors haven't had very much time to dry, the ones that I've already put on. So I don't want to sit and scrub too much in those areas when I'm putting on my color because I could actually remove the color that's behind there first. And also, when I get to those areas that are colored, I don't want to have too much water or pigment on my brush because if I get those areas wet, remember, watercolor is going to travel wherever the paper is wet. So I don't want my blue to get everywhere. I want it to just mostly be in my background and not turn my hair on my Scarecrow green because blue and yellow will make green. So I'm just going to go ahead and continue around my paper, put that blue on, and then I'll be putting some highlights in with my favorite pen. A good watercolor trick that you will want to know is that if you need to lift some color, as in if you got your blue color where you don't want it, you can go ahead and put your brush in clear water, take some of the moisture out, and then tickle that surface where you want to lift some of the color, and that might be able to remove the color where you don't want it. Just don't rub your paper too hard or it can rough the paper surface up too much and you'll end up with a roughed area. Once I got this far, I thought a kind of a distressed edge would look great, and I really like using Ranger's Distressed ink to do this. And Vintage Photo is one of my favorite colors to add on an edge. I think it looks really cute on this guy. I'm going to be adding some white details on my drawing next with a Uniball pen. It's a broad tip and the ink is great. It's a white ink that really is opaque and doesn't turn transparent when you put it on your items. Super love this pen. I'll put the link in the comments so if you decide you would like one, you'll easily be able to find it. I'm going to put the highlights into the eyes, and this is just going to bring this little guy right to life. If I put my highlights on the right-hand side of one eye, I want to put them on the right-hand side of the other and just add that little sparkle. I'm going to add a few little highlights here and there. I decided to put one on the side of his nose, one on the brim of his hat. I'm going to add a little bit onto the straw of his hair and some in the corn. I don't go overboard with the white, but I just add the little bit of sparkle. And when I got to this point too, I realized I forgot to do the doodling inside of my sunflower. So I did go back in and I added a little bit of line work with my marker to add the seeds on it and create more of a sunflower pattern in the middle. So there is still some time you can add more black lines if you want to. I'm just going to put a little final splash of pink on those cheeks, and then I'm going to call them done. Hopefully I've encouraged you to grab your paper and pencils and give drawing a chance. And if you're new to watercolor, go out and buy a cheap set. Try it. It's a lot of fun. If you like the page, if you like this video, if you'd like and subscribe, I greatly appreciate it. Thanks for hanging out with me, and hopefully you'll come back and see me again.